couple of you guys have recently been asking what the best way to select an architecture school is. Well, it's a very difficult question, but today we're going to tackle it head on. What's going on, guys? My name's David Tomic and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, firstly, thank you so much for joining me. On this channel, we talk about architecture and technology. My background is obviously in architecture. I'm a registered architect in the state of Western Australia, but I'm also a technology lover and an entrepreneur. So if any of those things interest you, make sure you smash that subscribe button, because today we're talking about architecture and selecting the perfect architectural university. There's going to be a lot of different points in this video, so I'm going to try and make this interesting and creative by running around this house like a madman and taking as many shots as I can. Architecture can be a pretty demanding and time-consuming course. So the first thing you want to look at is how long the course actually is. Most courses here in Australia are 3 years plus 2 years for your masters, plus another 2 years in the actual real world. So if you're looking for a good course, make sure it's about that 5-year mark. Make sure that the course you do select has pretty good fees and fee options. The last thing you want to be doing is opening up your fridge and having absolutely no food in it whatsoever. When we talk about fees, there's only really two different structures you should really focus on. One, do they offer student loans, or two, do they not? Some universities give you a student loan that is at a pretty good rate for as long as you need. So once you start earning a decent amount of money, you can actually start paying this loan off. Other universities don't have this option, which means you have to come up with the money straight away before you even start studying. So for example, one university might be $10,000 a year, the other might be $4,000. There's probably a pretty good reason for the difference in price, but at the end of the day, you can only go to what you can afford. Now, another thing you have to consider is that course online or is it at a campus? Does this matter to you? Do you want to be studying from home 24/7, or do you want to have that experience and go to a campus? Right now, I don't know if there's too much of a difference between courses if you pick a really good online university versus a really good campus university, but it is a personal choice, so it's something you have to consider. Personally, I think campus is the way to go because you get a lot more one-on-one time with your tutors. You really do need to sit down, draw and walk through some plans with your tutors if you're going to study architecture. Studying online is all well and good, and technology has definitely caught up to make this possible, but I still think campus is a much better option. The next thing you have to consider is how demanding is this course? How many hours do you have to spend at university or online? Is this going to leave you with enough time to work a part-time job? Do you need to work a part-time job? If so, do you even have to step back down and only do your course part-time? This is just something that you have to think about before you even begin thinking about individual universities or colleges. Okay, so we've got through the boring stuff before you even select a university. Now let's say you've narrowed it down to a few universities in your area, or the ones that you really want to go to. The first thing you want to focus on is the actual course curriculum. Do they have any electives in the first couple of years? What are those electives? Those electives are the ones that are going to differentiate you from all the other students in that course. So make sure that you pick an elective that has some sort of relevance to the architecture industry. In my personal experience, I picked the graphic design course. It taught me Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, all of those things, and it was fantastic. It was something that I still use to this day in my professional career. Other electives on course are things like interior design courses, construction management, or anything with technical drawing. You really want to get good at these elements because you're going to get tested on them, especially construction management and project management later on down the track when you go to register to become an architect. When you're looking through that course list, you want to make sure it's filled with practical and technical work and less theory work. That's just my opinion based on my experience. Practical work is things where you actually go out and design architecture, you design houses, you design commercial properties. And technical work is where you get to the nitty-gritty details. You understand the formation, the construction process, and everything that goes into building a house. The theory is obviously the history of architecture and all sorts of different theoretical architectural principles. This is all well and good, and you definitely have to learn something to get your head around architecture, but I do believe that your time is better spent on the practical and the technical. Now you've worked through the curriculum and you know exactly what you're getting taught, but who are you getting taught by? The ratio of teachers to students isn't that important unless it's 1 to 100, for example. If it's 1 to 10, 1 to 20, that's pretty normal and that's okay. I personally believe it's more important that you understand who's teaching you and who the lecturers are. So for example, are the lecturers only lecturers and have they only lectured their whole life? Or are they actual practicing architects as well as lecturers? The guys and girls that are practicing architects as well as lecturers are the ones that you genuinely want to learn from. Now, don't get me wrong here, the ones that have been lecturing for a very long time are exceptional as well, but I'm thinking more long-term here. Unless you want to end up as a researcher in the architecture field, then disregard this advice. But if you want to work as a practicing architect, then make sure you befriend those architects that are lecturers as well. They're the ones that are most likely going to give you a job after you've finished your master's degree, or even potentially during, if you're a high enough achiever. So as you walk into university, make sure you have a plan. Make sure you know what kind of architecture you want to do. Do you want to be a residential or commercial architect? Do you want to work for a big firm or a small firm? Plan this out, because you're going to have to take advantage of that from day one. You're going to find those lecturers that are architects and are lecturers at the same time. Hang on to them, learn from them, and master as much as you can, because they are more valuable than the entire course itself. And finally, you want to think about the facilities in the campus. Does the campus have 3D printers? Does it have laser cutters, CNC machines, plotters, A1 printers, A3 printers? Does it have any of this on site and on campus? What about a workshop if you want to create a model or anything of that sort? If you are studying on campus, these things are usually somewhere. The campuses are usually pretty large and it takes a little bit of hunting, but make sure you know if they have this at your university of choice. Now, a couple of the less important things, in my personal opinion at least. One, parking and travel. A lot of universities are cutting down on the parking and limitations to traveling to the university. They're encouraging public transport and riding your bike and all sorts of sustainable practices, which is great if you're studying architecture because it all ties in. But if you live pretty far away, then you want to be able to drive and make sure you can get there on time, especially if you have to go to a part-time job after. So that's just something you have to take into consideration. If you are going to drive to campus, you're probably going to spend a long time there as an architect or an architecture student. I know I spent 48, 50 hours there at any given time without any sleep, so campus amenities are pretty important. Does that campus have a nice pub or a bistro or something that you can go to during your lunch break with your mates just to hang out and discuss and just create those real friendships that are going to last forever? Because university is just as important for learning and knowledge as it is for creating lifelong friendships. You can't forget about the sporting facilities as well. Does it have a gym? Does it have a pool? Does it have all sorts of things like this? Because again, most likely you're going to be spending most of your time on campus. So if you can condense your whole life to that campus, it is the most ideal situation. Anyway, that's all for me today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you enjoyed the little quirky house tour at the same time. If there's anything else you'd like to know, make sure you leave a comment down below. I'm happy to answer any questions you have whatsoever. Because this video forms one of my 28 videos in 28 days for February of 2021. It would usually be, I'll see you next Monday, but in this case, I'll see you tomorrow.